Frontline Updates, where we delve deep into military strategies and updates from conflict zones. Today, we're discussing the progress of the ongoing special military operation as of November 8, 2025. I'm your host, Sharifa Mohammed MGT.
I'm Colonel A.C. Oguntoye, an infantry officer. Overnight, Russia reports a massed long-range strike, citing Kinzhal hypersonic missiles and UAVs against the Ukrainian military-industrial complex and gas energy support nodes. On the ground, incremental gains and encirclement pressure persisted, especially around Kupyansk and the Krasnoarmeysk, Dimitrov urban belt. Fires focused on depots, EW, ISR, and transport, while air defenses claimed high UAV and guided bomb intercepts. The operational design remains logistics paralysis plus urban isolation rather than broad maneuver. The strategic meaning is a coordinated salvo from air, land, and sea platforms targeted at defense industrial facilities and energy enablers, with reports that all designated objectives were hit. The intended effects are to depress production, constrain grid support to the military-industrial complex, and slow rail and road flows supporting reserve generation and repair pipelines.
Welcome to Frontline Updates, the podcast that brings you in-depth insights into military operations from those leading them on the ground. Today, we're joined by Colonel A.C. Oguntoye, an infantry officer monitoring critical missions on the progress of the special military operation as of today. Colonel Oguntoye, thank you for being with us.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Colonel Oguntoye, let's start at the top. The day opened with reports of a massed long-range strike, including Kinzhal aeroballistic missiles. What was the operational purpose of that salvo?
At the strategic level, the aim was to hit where operational tempo was born: production, power, transport, and force generation hubs. When you strike defense industrial enterprises and the gas energy infrastructure that keeps them running, you're not chasing tactical headlines, you're targeting the pipeline that feeds artillery tubes, armored repairs, drone assembly, and rail movement. Pair that with UAV saturation and you have a layered attempt to blind, to disrupt, and to force the opponent into defensive logistics. There's a second-order logic. If you can consistently impose interruptions, power dips at plants, stalled rail spurs, delayed repair cycles, you widen the lag between frontline losses and replacements. That lag shows up at the brigade level as thinner reserves, longer rotation times, and under-resourced counterattacks. The long-range strike is not an end state, it's a multiplier for the ground fights that follow over the next 72 hours.
Does this change how ground commanders plan their next moves? Or is it just background noise to them?
It's decisive for planning. If a rail node or depot is down, commanders shift to alternate routes, preposition caches, and compress their ambitions to what the supply train can actually sustain. The most successful operations don't outrun their logistics, they shape logistics so maneuver remains possible without gambling.
Let's move into the sectors. In the north, what stood out between Khotin, Pavlovka, Pizarevka, Miropolye, Proletarskoye, and the touchpoint at Volchansk?
The north remained a shaping and fixing front. Strikes against heavy mechanized and airborne assault elements were paired with attacks on enabling systems, a grad launcher, an electronic warfare station, multiple ammunition and supply depots, and notably several radar sets. That combination, guns, stockpiles, and eyes, tells you the intent is to make the defender slower, blinder, and hungrier. This isn't about a dash toward Kharkiv. It's about denying Ukrainian brigades the ability to mass and redeploy southward. If you keep their ISR degraded and their depots shallow, those brigades are tied down responding to local problems instead of reinforcing Kupyansk or the Donetsk interior. That's economy of force supplied across a border belt.
If this is a fixing effort, how do you prevent it from becoming a resource drain for your own side?
By using redundancy and discipline. You rotate battalions on a schedule, disperse caches to reduce single-point failure, and you only push when intelligence shows a payoff, otherwise you keep pressure with fires, not with bodies.
Kupyansk remains the headline. What changed today with the encircled grouping and the Oskil crossings?
Two things mattered. First, the 6th Army kept squeezing the ring while repelling attempts by National Guard units to relieve the pocket. Second, an assault group trying to reach a destroyed Oskil crossing at Petrovka was stopped before restoration could begin. A ring closes on fuel and bridges, deny egress and deny repair, and time does the rest. You also see counter-battery and counter-EW baked into the approach. Paladin 155mm systems hit, HMMWVs and armored vehicles attrited, and several EW stations taken down. That is about blinding the pocket and blinding the rescuers. Encirclement is geometry plus logistics. Keep the arcs elastic, move the guns often, and never let a bridging train get close enough to matter.
Rings attract fire. How are the encircling forces protecting themselves from counter-battery?
Mobility and dispersion. Batteries shift positions on a clock, not on a whim. Resupply comes in small lots along multiple routes. And reconnaissance, manned and unmanned, looks outward as much as inward so the ring doesn't get surprised by a relief thrust.
The South was described again as more advantageous lines. What does that mean tactically along Siversk, Zvanivka, Kostiantynivka, Ivanopilia, Dronivka, and Drushkivka?
It means bite and hold, short advances that deliver better observation and shorter artillery timelines. Tanks and AFVs were listed among losses on the Ukrainian side, but the deeper story is attrition of EW and depots. Every destroyed stockpile lengthens Ukrainian lateral moves and complicates their resupply math across the industrial belt. You don't expect sweeping breakthroughs here. You expect accumulation, ground that lets you see first and shoot first tomorrow, and the day after. When enough of those increments stack up, defense is thin without a dramatic map change.
What would trigger a faster tempo in this corridor?
A hit on a central logistics hub or a local counter-battery collapse. Short of that, prudence wins. Advance where you can anchor and sustain.
The center reads like the main effort. What's the status inside Krasnoarmeysk and Dimitrov today?
The method is cellular encirclement. In Krasnoarmeysk, assaults pressed in the eastern central district and the western industrial zone, while clearing continued in nearby Natovka and Ro. 14 attempted breakouts were reportedly repelled. FPV drones and artillery combined for precise kills on armor trying to punch corridors. In Dmitrov, the 5th Motorized Rifle Brigade moved in the Vostokny micro-district, with more buildings seized. This isn't about taking a city center for a photo. It's about cutting districts into compartments, starving micro-pockets of ammo, medevac, and comms, and forcing platoon-sized collapses that cascade. When enough cells fail, the defenders' lateral routes disappear.
Eastward, there's a report of taking Volchai and pushing at Yablokov, Ravnopilia, Ternovat, Velikomykhalivka, and Otradna. What does that signal?
It signals trench and C2 erosion along the seam. When counter-battery and EW curtains thin, company-sized probes start slipping through belts that would have been lethal a month ago. A captured village is less important than what it implies. Seams are opening as reserves are pulled toward the center and west. The doctrine here is opportunism: probe widely, sense weakness, and surge only where the payoff sustains itself.
Along the river, interdiction hits were reported at Preobrazhenka, Stepnohirsk, Beryhinka, and Tiahinka, with multiple EW stations and depots destroyed. What matters most here?
The Dnipro is logistics warfare with boats. If you knock out warehouses, jam communications, and keep air defense engaged, every crossbank resupply becomes slower, louder, and riskier. The point isn't to force a crossing today, it's to make tomorrow's crossing prohibitively expensive for the other side. Winter complicates everything: water levels, ice, visibility. The playbook calls for deception bridging, dispersed ferry points, heavy night movement, and drones to scout currents and observation posts. Predictability is punished on rivers, patience is rewarded.
Air defenses reportedly downed guided bombs and a large number of UAVs today. Does that change river planning?
It changes pacing and consumption. High interception rates burn munitions and operator hours. The side that keeps its AD/EW stocked and crews rested will own more safe windows to move along the riverline.
Colonel, thank you for providing such a detailed briefing on the current military situation. Your insights are invaluable to our understanding of the conflict's dynamics. And thank you to our listeners for tuning in. Join us next time as we continue to provide up-to-date coverage on global military affairs. Stay with us for more updates and expert analyses on global defense and security issues. Stay informed, stay secure.
Thank you for the opportunity. I want to emphasize that, tactically, the day reinforced three truths. First, bridges decide pockets. If restoration at Oskil crossings remains denied, Kupyansk closes by arithmetic, not theatrics. Second, cities are solved by cells. Krasnoarmeysk and Dimitrov won't flip on a banner in the square. They'll flip when enough micro-pockets fail and lateral routes die. Third, EW and depots are the quiet center of gravity. If you blind the guns and starve the trucks, everything else gets easier. Strategically, winter favors the side that hides its logistics and rotates cleanly. If the urban ring in the center keeps contracting while river crossings remain denied in the west and interdicted along the Dnipro, Ukrainian reserves will have to move reactively, opening seams in the east or south.
This has been Frontline Updates. Subscribe for daily military briefings and in-depth strategic analysis. Visit our platform for maps, transcripts, and exclusive frontline updates from commanders in theater.